Today is my granddaughter Haileigh's 21st birthday. If you've seen my channel or been with me this month, you'll know that I have done 6 videos in the last month about the power of a Roth IRA. And if you start early enough, and if you do the right research and invest in the right stocks, you can have astronomical returns, and then that money be all tax-free. Well, I got to thinking, what better birthday present could I give to my granddaughter Haileigh on her 21st birthday than to explain this in detail to her and then show her that it has happened before and give her the logic as to why I think it is going to happen again. So this video is, although it's available to the general public, this is my birthday present to my granddaughter Haileigh. Nita will take care of the normal writing a check and helping them out. But this, I want to share my knowledge, not as financial advice, Haileigh, because I can't be your financial advisor. I'm not licensed, but as a sharing of my knowledge and my experience that I've acquired over the years, and then the research that I've done and the application of that research to what I think is going to happen in the future. So this is the best I can do, Haileigh. And once I share with you in writing that I'm not your financial advisor, instead I'm your grandfather, and I want to share some of my knowledge with you so that maybe I can improve your life. So stick with me.
Best of Us Investors presents Carrie Griegmeyer.
Okay, Haileigh, as a reference, I've done 6 other videos on this in the last 2 weeks. And it's all built around something our government gave us back in the late 90s, and that is a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is something that you can put $6,000 into. Unlike a traditional IRA, it is not tax deductible, but it is not taxable when you take it out later in your years. Now, what I like about that is that if you invest properly, you'll have a massive sum of money in your retirement that is tax-free. I don't think our government really understands the ramifications of this, but I want you to understand it, Haileigh. So then what I need to do is make you believe that it is possible that if you yourself invest $6,000 a year between now and your 55th birthday, you have the possibility of having $17 million of tax-free money when you turn 55. And if you'll wait and not access it until you're 61, that could be $113 million. Now, I'm going to show you 6 stocks that you could have invested in if you started in 1982 and did this program that I'm suggesting. Now, you might say, well, what makes you, Grandpa, how do you think it's going to happen again? Well, I think the reality is that back in 1989, we had the introduction of the World Wide Web, which turned into what you know as the Internet. And we had the companies that made the Internet available. And between 1982 and, let me check here, 2012, we had 6 companies that came into being that took advantage of this huge change in our economy called the digital revolution. And if you would have invested in them, and I'm going to show you in a chart on a year-to-year basis, if you had invested $6,000 per year in these 6 companies as they became, this is cumulatively, $6,000 a year, you would have at 55 $17 million. Now, you might ask yourself, Poppy, what makes you think this could happen again? Well, understand in 1987, when Apple was born, we didn't have computers. Take that to today in 2022. We have artificial intelligence on top of the computers. We have machine learning on top of the computers. And now we're getting into quantum computers. And that is just going to expedite and increase the effect of digital technology on the world we live in. And certain areas of our economy are going to explode. And it's going to make the growth of Apple, Microsoft, Google, and three other companies, it's going to make it look insignificant. But I want to take you first to walk you through how we got to where we are on the growth of these companies that would give you $17 million at 55. And then I'll talk to you a little bit more about who's the Apple of today? Who's the Google of today? Who's the Microsoft of today? Because that's the key. If we know it's happened in the past, we can rationalize it could happen again in the future if we determine that the things are going to be in place to make them happen. Then all we have to do is identify the people and the companies that are going to make them happen. So let me take you over to my computer and share this chart with you. Okay, Haileigh, to prove this concept to you, I first went and I want to share with you a chart that I have created on TradingView that shows the 6 stocks I want you to be aware of and how they performed over the past 40 years to show you that what I'm proposing is possible, okay? And we're going back to 1982, and that's when Microsoft went public. And as you can see in the orange line the travel that Microsoft had. And today, from its IPO, it is up 286, almost 287,000%. Okay? And then I've shown you Amazon, Apple, NVIDIA. I actually threw in Tesla, Facebook, and Google. So there you see the growth of these companies over the last 40 years. Now, what I want to do is break it down even more understandable and take you to a chart. And this is a chart that runs, or a spreadsheet that runs from 1982. And I'm going to start with Apple. That's when it became public. And as you can see, in its first year, it had a gain of 35%. If you had invested your $6,000, that 35% gain would have given you a $2,000 gain. So you add that to your balance. The next year, it had a loss of 18%. But because you added another $6,000, your balance went up. What I want you to look at, though, that is kind of shocking is here you'll see that in 1987, you had $101,000 in Apple. But then it went down 50% in 1993, and your 100,000 turned into 75,000. But it gets worse. So what I'm sharing with you is that it is not the fact that it goes up and down in a given year, and you want to avoid even watching that. What it is, as the company matures, as the concept matures, you get into astronomical numbers because you have accumulated cash. But still, here you had a year that was up 133%, and your 1 million turned into 2,300,000, but then the very next year went back to 1 million. But it really doesn't matter, because as you accumulate, the power of compound interest just blows it up. And as you can see, after losing 7% in 2018, you then got 86%, 81%, and 35%, and your 13 million turned into 59 million. That's the power of compounding interest. So then what I wanted to do was say, okay, we put our 6,000, but let's don't put all our eggs in one basket. When the next company that we've researched and we believe has some staying power comes out, and that's Microsoft, we stop putting 6,000 in here and only put 1,000. And we put the other 5,000 in Microsoft. And we see the same thing happen. Then when we get down here, we see this e-commerce company that's coming in, and we say, that's got some potential because we've done our research and we understand the concept. And so we stop putting our 5,000 into Microsoft, but now we only put 1,000 and we put 4,000 into Amazon. And then we do the same thing as we become aware of a company called NVIDIA. Again, we drop ourselves down on the 3 prior and to 1,000, and we put 3,000 over here because we're keeping up with the change. We're putting our big money into the new technology. And we do the same thing through Google. And then in 2012, we do the same thing in Facebook. So we're recognizing the change and the innovation and the technology as we do it, but we stay to our plan of investing $6,000 every year. And so then what I show you here is at 22, you have $8,000 based off of 1 year of $6,000 spent or invested. And it continues to climb, and you have some setbacks. Here, when you're 39 years old, you would have had almost 5 million, and it shrunk to 1.76. But you stay the course because you believe in these companies and the future. So as I said, when you're at 55, you've got $17 million. When you're 61, if you can hold out that long, you've got 113,000. And if it's in a Roth IRA, that's all tax-free money. If you want to go on a fantastic vacation and spend $100,000, the government doesn't show up and say, wait, we want 33% of it in taxes. No, they get none of it. You get your full $100,000. And that's the power of this. But the real emphasis is it's making a decision at this point in your life that this is what I'm going to do. I am going to take $6,000 of my hard-earned money and invest it in people that are smarter than me. And that's people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. And when you see these smart people, you say, I want a part of that. Now, the question now becomes is who are the smart people of 2022? Let's get to that. Okay, so you've seen that it's happened before. And again, you might say, okay, but how do you find an Apple and a Microsoft at this early stage? Well, you first of all, before Apple and Microsoft, we had plenty of information to tell us that the World Wide Web was coming, that this thing called the internet was going to become a part of our lives. So that was change. And if you identify it as change and start there, then you're okay. So now you have to ask yourself, what is the next change? What is the next change that is going to become available to us because of events that are happening? What's an event? Well, sir, in the current history, the biggest event that has happened is the coronavirus. Also, the big event that has happened is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then we've recognized that our supply chain is broken. So those are 3 events. And if you rationalize that those events are going to create change, what is that change going to be? Well, the first one, the coronavirus has proven to us that our healthcare system is broken, that a bat who infected an animal that infected a human being could bring the whole world's economies to their knees for 2 years is a huge event. And that event has created an awareness that our healthcare system is broken. We don't cure, we treat disease rather than cure them. Well, going on in that same time, we have discovered genome sequencing and genome editing. So that is the equivalent, if you will, of the digital revolution. We're going to have a healthcare revolution. Now, I talked about we also, as a result of that and as a result of the Russia-Ukraine invasion, we recognize that our supply chain is broken. That is, that we can't get goods as we need them because we have put all the manufacturing of the goods and things we need in foreign countries. So the supply chain has to come back. How is that possible? It went away because of cheap labor. 3D printing and robotics will take care of that. So that is an investment we need to look at. Then we have the event that we know that missiles and bombs from airplanes are not the warfare of the future. The warfare of the future is someone shutting down our electric grid, someone shutting off our supply of oil. So, in other words, invading our internet system. So cybersecurity is going to be an opportunity, an investment opportunity, as a result of both the coronavirus and the war in Vietnam. And then we have, as off in the side, fintech. We have the coming of Bitcoin and other cybersecurities, and then we have the archaic practices of the banking system. So we know as a result of this that these four things, healthcare, supply chain, cybersecurity, and fintech, is going to create four new revolutions that are equivalent, if not greater, than the digital revolution that happened in the early 90s. So what I showed you that you could have invested $6,000 over the last 30, 40 years and accumulated 17 million or 113 million is not absurd. In fact, to say that could never happen again is what's absurd. It is going to happen again because you add to it the acceleration of the pace of change through artificial intelligence, machine learning, and quantum computing. Okay? So we know it's going to happen. So then we look back in history and said, okay, if we know the change is going to happen, how could we have identified Bill Gates and Paul Allen, the founders of Microsoft, or Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak? Well, we would have just Googled them. But wait, Google didn't exist, so we couldn't do that. But Google exists now. So what we need to do is find the people, the Bill Gates and Paul Allens of 2020, 2022, by Googling it and finding the people that are going to change our world. Well, if you will Google healthcare revolution, you'll probably sooner or later come across the names of Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Carpentier. And if you want to learn more about it, Haileigh, read this book, The Code Breaker, written by Walter Isaacson, and it explains to you the whole avenue of genome sequencing and genome editing on how we are going to take disease out of our bodies by recognizing the mutations in our bodies that cause cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's, child blindness, and Alzheimer's, plus many, many more. So that's all available. So we know who two of the champions of this are. We know who the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs are. Well, there's several other names, and I have disclosed those in my prior videos, which includes George Church and Frode Zhang. These are people who are at the cutting edge of this new healthcare revolution. So if we know the people, and we know the revolution is going to occur, we nearly now need to find out who are these people investing their money in? Who are these people who are championing the companies that are going to change us from health care to health cure? If we know that, we now know who to put our $6,000 a year into for healthcare revolution. Then we need to look and say, how do we do that relative to supply chain? Who are the 3D printing companies who are going to bring labor or eliminate labor and bring our cost of manufacturing back to the United States? That's easily found. Again, you merely Google it. And I will disclose that, Haileigh, in a future video. I'm already up to 13 minutes. Actually, with the other part, I'm over 20 minutes. I have to keep this down. So I'm telling you, we have identified the people, we can identify the companies, and now we merely need to create the investment plan. And the investment plan for you, Haileigh, is $6,000 a year for the year 2022, for the next 40 years, goes into those disruptive technologies and companies that are going to change the way you live. If you will focus on that and basically break it down to $6,000 a year to $500 a month, choose your company, set up a brokerage account, and just put it in religiously. And as I showed you in the chart, you may have a point where you get up to $100,000, and because of a bad year, it goes down to $30,000. But if you will stay the course, if you will recognize that our economy is driven by technology and disruptive change, you only have to imagine how much this is going to turn into, because I am confident if I'm confident of anything, when I tell you that if you'll do this at 61, you'll have $113 million of tax-free money. The only thing I'm sure of is that number is small. That number is, because again, you add artificial intelligence, machine learning, and quantum computing, and whatever else happens in the next 40 years, you're going to blow that 113 million out of the water. Okay? So, Haileigh, happy birthday. Just adopt the plan and have it drawn out of your checking account and call me on your 61st birthday. Talk to you all again soon.